understand. Yeah, that's what I want to understand.
David, you see, also one thing that we need to know is that how well your salary is. Okay, let me say that my salary is not enough for me. How well your salary is, or how well your condition of service is a function of the general performance of or the state of the economy. So let me give you a.
So you see what I was saying to you about the economy?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is that your salary and condition of service is a function of how well the general economy is performing is because the Chum didn't budget that there will be doom so this year. So he has to bear David do a management member, so you cannot say certain things.
I'm not a management member.
but he has to buy fuel to keep the plants running. Right. So that's his cost. So how is the businessman when he goes to the bank? What is the loan regime? 27-29%. Can he afford loans? Expand business and employ and give you better conditions of service. Now, David, there are even instances where the business want to retain talent, but they cannot, because when they put 2 and 2s together, they cannot keep everybody happy at a time. So the first point I want to make is that how well the general or the country's economy is working determines how well you'll be paid. There are some cases the employer, whatever you do, onto a kettle, but generally this is what the theory says. Now, David, my issue is that most Ghanaian employers are just callous, most of them, and I've worked in various sectors, and most of them are callous. As Lewis said, adwuma enye papa so na pressure woman, unnecessary pressure. Adwuma enye papa na pressure. David, I do a lot of consulting stuff. They don't give you the pressure most Ghanaian employers want you to make. You pay someone 800 cedis, expect the person to appear every day for the whole month. David, so what you speak about is what we must start having conversations on. You sometimes they just want to see you at work, say, well, who's over her. But we also need to get to a point where you, the employer, must know realistically that the 800 cedis you are giving the person is not enough. Therefore, sit with the person. Develop a certain modality that will work for the person and will work for you. Then the person can go and do other things. Because, David, honestly, the salaries we are paid in this country are not good salaries. We live in a country where the Ghana Statistical Service says what? Almost 90% of us. And what? 3,002. What is rent? What is the cost of food? Today, Montessori's. Almost 2 months, I don't know how they've done this. Almost 2-3 months, you are paying school fees. Now, David, aside that, you can even give a better description to this. There are drinks, the water. So there's a lot of burden on people. So employers must have that recognition on the side of the employers. You, the employee, must also be smart. And smartness here, I'm not talking about going to do pilfering or steal. But David, there are days when maybe when you take your leave, you can take some contract, execute. Maybe you also know that maybe you need to reduce it and do other things.
But is our atmosphere conducive?
I'm coming there. So for we the employees, that's what we must do. Now, David, generally all this conversation will come back to government. And it's because, as I've said, the first point, whatever salary you have, how well the business will blossom for them to even pay you well, will come back to how well the economy is functioning. They need to look at some of these things. If a Ghanaian business has to compete with someone in South Africa, 14% interest rate or so to 29%, they cannot compete. They can't. Now, even the tax regime for the business is another thing. Right? The last time David commissioned us to look into the tax thing, and we looked at the examples across Africa, and you see how they are managing their tax system. So the government also has a stake in creating the enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Then when the businesses thrive, they can be able to pay more. That would be my initial submission.
Well, I also want to talk a bit more about the conditions under which some people work, even though the salary might not be good or be good. And you know the concerns that the mortuary people have raised over the time?
Yeah.
That they need some PPAs to work with, they're not getting the PPAs. and their salaries are even locked up and doesn't come. And when you raise concerns, they're like,
For them, it's even life threatening. If you don't have PPAs to work on dead bodies, you are literally killing them.
but that same goes for the drivers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you're driving long distance, you have to carry passengers to Accra, and your car is not in a good condition. Your life definitely is also at stake. So that's why we want to have this conversation. A day after Workers' Day, what is your situation out there? The work you do you have the tools to work with? Are the conditions under which you work okay? Is your salary okay? We'd like to hear from you. And like I said, you can send us your voice notes to 0540-448747. That's our WhatsApp number, 0540-448747. But Leo, you were also saying something, and you were doing a bit of a comparative analysis, looking at Ghana and let's say elsewhere, where you were saying, for example, that in the US, you know that this is the work you're doing, this is how many hours you're working for, this is how much you're making, and yet you can live a comfortable life.
Yeah.
And that is where I raise the issue of the economy.
Yeah.
Out there, you can plan.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some other services available that will make your life easier and better. So for the trains are there, you know what time a train is moving so you can budget. You know what time the bus is moving so you can budget, so you can plan. You know that, well, the currency is stable enough for you to be able to know that inflation is not going to affect your salary. But here in Ghana, it's a reverse. Our transportation system is not the best. And then you cannot plan because inflation hits us like, measles hitting a child.
Yeah. Outside there, if you are doing a menial job, most of the time you know how much money you are going to make in a year. So your income bracket is somewhere between, say, 20 to 25,000 a year. After doing all your deductions and paying everything, sometimes you ask them and they have less than $50 in their account. But then they are able to live a decent life. You can afford...
When you say decent life, what do you mean by decent life?
A decent life is being able to afford a good meal. I'm not saying go and buy food with 3 pieces of big chicken on it and all of that, and on a luxury. But all the time I use the people I go to meet at the Kenke place here. Oba no ato Kenke 5 cedis. No ajin kruma ne meko. Or your mistake no top fish 5 cedis can home cry. Maybe that day he will walk home. That is not a decent life. Right? I'm saying somebody doing that kind of job, at least Kenke bako any of fish protein bako dear, you should be able to afford it. If you are living a life where you are working and you have 1 or 2 kids and a wife, and then you cannot afford that, then you are not living a decent life, right? So outside there, because of the economy is stable, somebody earning within that same income, or to me, yes,
they're able to buy cars.
There
are mortgages that can enable you own a house or own an apartment. So when you go on retirement,
so once we know that this is how much you are making in the year, no one spread it. So you are going. If you ask them, give me loan me $100. Oh yeah, but what will keep them going as a decent human being? At the papa, decent for them to wear, food that is good, okay for them to wear in a small space, or to me, living with a partner, good for them to wear. It's okay, but here it's not like that. People have degrees working in places like the mortuary, and then when you look at the conditions of service and the life that they are living, the places that they live are real. It shouldn't be like that.
And that is why, to a large extent, oftentimes you hear people say that Ghanaians are magicians.
You see,
Ghanaians are described as magicians. They don't have enough, they're not paid well enough, but yet they're able to get by. So what's your story? You can also join us. Send us your voice notes to 0540 448747. 0540 448-747. In a bit, we'll be activating the phone lines. We're talking about workers in Ghana. Yesterday was Workers' Day. And so we observed the day as such. And this conversation we're having stems from something that a group of teachers, 800 of them went to Accra from Kumasi. They work for 8 months and more, and they have not been paid.
David, this thing of Ghanaians are not magic. You see, the last time I watched retired COP Kofi and said that sometimes you beni bikura you bune corruption.
Yeah, I remember those sounds yes. We shared.
Yeah, but you can't mass abe teacher need na ketu ya was.
That was true.
David,
Oh,
there are some Ghanaian where there are some way, and I know when the entrepreneurs call, that's what they will say. Do we all have attitude issues? But David, employers can do better. Take this Zoom Lion thing that they were talking about. How do you project that you get 1,003 every month? You are buying. If you're a they be a top
It
price.
doesn't make sense, does it?
You see, so David, sometimes our employers, and we all have friends, sometimes how they treat the employees is bad. And you must know that when the employee breaks down, the company will not survive. Because they are the oil, the wheels that are grinding for the business to survive. So when you see an employee who's committing everything to a business, doing their best, you, the employer, must also do your best for that person.
In some companies, it's beautiful. They have a 13th month salary.
Ah,
So a whole year you've worked, sacrificed, committed to the job you do. Christmas comes. They know that Christmas is a fun time for the families. If you have children, they want to have fun. They want to have new clothing. They want to eat well. They want to do so many things.
extra cost on everything.
Yes. So then they give you something extra, maybe half of your salary, either in that same month of December or first 2 weeks of January,
Yeah.
just to cushion
at
you.
least to cushion you.
To lighten the air.
David,
kind of.
David, there are some companies. Christmas, Christmas. Do I do my entire? Ni ama money oil. Yes, if I could fee. How do you expect? No, you
But
see,
I know some foreign companies here. They have employed some Ghanaians. Christmas, when you have 12, what do you call it, corned beef, one full crate, that 24 crate of milk, one big oil, big rice, and then they add what cry? I think they add some drinks, and then they add some envelope on it as well.
something. If you're not giving
When it's Christmas, you feel so good.
Something.
But like he's saying, one bag oil, and then angwa.
Oh, they are more bonado.
David, and you see, David. Also on the flip side, me try. The employment may also argue that business is not good, but David, it can't always be the chorus that business is not good. Business is not good. But you have not folded up. You have not folded up. The machine is still going. So you need to find a way and keep, because David, you see, one thing I've noticed the last time, we were talking about the Chabaos, how South Korea supported the Hyundais and co. And when you read the story, one of the things they did was that they didn't allow the Americans to steal the best of their talent. They met them. They be away. One day, be good.
True. And you see, we live in a country where we know that our doctors are leaving, our nurses are leaving, teachers are leaving. And why are they leaving? And when they go there, even with all the degrees they have, they're not. Some of them don't go and practice the medicines and whatever they do some other jobs, but they prefer that job to the job that they're doing here.
A specialist here, David. Yesterday with the point you raised, and that's why I said the Love FM listeners, I love them. Someone actually did the calculation and said it's on my other phone. It's off. I would have shown you. We did when the NDC want to give 20% of their salary as accommodation for rural teachers. Yeah. Let's assume a teacher earns 3,000. Assume a teacher earns 3,000, right? 20% of that 3,000 is how much per month to David, divided by 100 times. Let me just do the math for you. Times 3,000. So David, that's 600 cedis a month. 600 cedis. Let's even assume there are 100,000 teachers at these areas. It's 60 million. Pick the Auditor General's report. Every year, how much do we lose in appropriations, misappropriation, their English, embezzlement, under reporting, and all those things? So it tells you that it is not as if you don't have the means. It is about prioritization
and careful planning.
And David, I love you.
And see the man who called yesterday, Leo Eugene. Do you remember the guy who called yesterday? And he said he's a teacher, and the sacrifices he's done. Even if somebody says plain in here to Kwankwa Bruchi, or someone crying yes. Why should a human being in Ghana think like this? The person is thinking like this because of the conditions under which he or she is working. Thinking like this because the salaries are not enough. And yet you want the person to kill himself or herself for your business to grow. But when things get better, you also give off your very best to the company. Because that's where you also get your daily bread from. 03220 83596. 03220 83597.